Sioux Falls, and welcome to Planning Preview for the month of September. My name is Jason Bieber with the Planning Office with the City of Sioux Falls, and joining me as always is Janet with the Planning Commission.
Hello, Jason. Good to be with you again.
It's great to have you here on this really hot and humid day.
Yes, very hot. Yes.
Yeah, it's nice that it's cool here in the studio. So.
Yes, it's a lovely temperature.
Yeah, it looks like we've got kind of a big agenda. Normally it slows down a little bit, but pretty big agenda for the month of September.
I know, I was surprised. Yeah, but I guess we'll just kind of dig in and go for it here. So we're going to the west side of town for our first one. It looks like we're on the corner of 9th Street and west of North Marion Road. So we're going to have a zoning change request from commercial to light industrial. So it seems to me that it's kind of an empty lot right now. Am I right?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, there's currently an empty lot, and some of the other uses around there are all industrial. So we're kind of, I think the applicant's looking to do maybe like a little contractor shop or warehouse or some small little use.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Very appropriate in that area.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, then we'll move on to our next one, which is kind of fun. This is our first one of these. We're doing a rezone from the Live Work District to the Midtown Mixed Use. So tell us about that.
Yeah, very exciting. Like I said, you guys approved this back in April, the new zoning for those three zoning districts to allow some maybe mixed use and redevelopment along some of our major corridors like Minnesota Avenue and other places around outside the downtown. Well, this is our first project that we're going to get, and this is kind of that just north of Slim Chickens on Minnesota Avenue. So there's that vacant lot, and then the applicant had already built kind of that fourplex looking, kind of townhome looking thing that faces Spring Avenue. So now what he wants to do is fill in that with a 4-story mixed-use building with commercial and office on the main level, and then 3 stories of apartments, and then we'll push it up towards Minnesota Avenue, kind of like we're talking about. Just really kind of a cool project, and hopefully it's something that you can kind of get to start with some other redevelopment along Minnesota Avenue. So super excited about it.
Yeah, that's just exactly what we were envisioning or talking about when we made that change. Yeah.
It would have been great too. You know, we were talking about this with the applicant. If he could have done this before some chickens built. Some chickens could have been like a first floor tenant, right? And then we could have went up. So that's, and if you go by Some Chickens, it's a drive-through with a ton of parking spaces. So those are just something that as we move forward, we can get kind of that shared parking and really redevelop the core area in those corridors. So
yeah, well that would be great. All right, let's see our next one. We are doing a rezone from the office district to the commercial, and that one is, out by the Gateway.
Yep, right out by the Gateway Lounge. It's an old office out there, and the applicant's looking to convert it to kind of a doggy daycare area. Obviously, we need a lot of those. It seems like people like to take their dogs to daycare, not only their kids now, but take the dogs to daycare.
Drop the dog off.
Yeah, on their way to work. So.
Yeah, I don't have that problem. I have a cat, and he would not go.
He wouldn't make it.
Nope, wouldn't do it. Yep. All right, sounds good. Next one, we're doing a rezone from commercial over to the twin home duplex, and that is, oh my gosh, on the east side of town, east of 57th and South Dakota Highway 11?
Yeah, so just east of where the intersection where Veterans Parkway is now, and then it starts veering off to the southwest out there. So this is some vacant ground. We just finished 57th Street actually all the way over to 6 Mile, so now we're getting some development. So it's kind of back into the frontage there a little bit south, and the applicant's looking to do some twin homes, and townhomes along kind of the west and then the north side where it's going to abut some future commercial for a little better transition, and then actually some single family houses to get some more rooftops out there. So hopefully that'll support some of the commercial out there.
Perfect, and they've already started building some of the commercial. Isn't there like an Ace Hardware?
That's really blowing up out there, that west side, to get some other uses out there. So,
perfect. All right. Let's see. Our next one is we're doing a rezone from light industrial to commercial, and that's kind of north of Syncor, just off the interstate out there, off I-29.
Yep, so just west of Westport Avenue, and like you talked about, north of Syncor, and really kind of southwest of the Sanford Sports Complex. So kind of another exciting development, a really large mixed-use building, and then some apartments, a hotel out there was what they're planning. So really kind of keeps that development going out in the Sanford Sports Complex. And I think they saw a lot of with the baseball and soccer tournaments this year with those fields being finished, really a lot of people out there. So it'd be kind of good to continue to get some more hotels and stuff and really fill in some of this land that the infrastructure is already there, right? We're ready to go with it. So.
Right, that's been empty for
a long time.
Long time, yeah, that'll be good to fill that in. Wonderful. All right, our next one, we're doing a conditional use permit for, oh my gosh, the Furniture Mission of South Dakota. And that's right by the new Children's Inn building that just got built this past year.
Yep, just to the south of that, that'll fill in that gap where you get to 10th Street, which is great. I mean, the Children's Inn building looks amazing out there, and this will be a nice place for the Furniture Mission to go to give them a little bit more room. And it's kind of, if you ever dropped anything off there, you got to go through the alley. It gets tight in there. It's just logistically, it'll be a lot better, and for the volunteers and stuff. So it's really kind of a cool campus that's turned into with some of the services that they're doing out there. Yeah,
you never would have envisioned that years ago when it was the School for the Deaf campus. Just amazing what's happened there. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, and then our last one, we're taking over to Augustana University where they're building the new ice arena. So what's happening there?
So this is one of those amendments that we do for planned unit developments we have. So really this one is focusing on some of the signage. Their previous one, obviously the ice arena wasn't really a consideration at that time. If you've driven by there now, it's big building right on the corner there, so they have to update that master sign plan to include some additional signage or what signage they want to do for that specific building. But that building's really coming along. It's really exciting for Augustana to have that new ice and new hockey team out there for
I literally drove by that this morning and I was shocked at how big it is. But it's cool.
It's nice. It's going to be really nice inside. So
very appropriate to get new signage for that. So great. I think that's all we have on our agenda.
Yeah, it should be a pretty full one, but some kind of fun, exciting projects, not just your normal run-of-the-mill stuff. So I'm pretty excited. So great. Stay tuned, Sioux Falls. After the break, we're going to have Albert Schmidt with the Planning Office come and talk to us a little bit about our flood management program, some of the big wins and some of the big things coming up in 2023. Stay tuned.
Hey, this is Seth and I work for the City of Sioux Falls in the Housing Division. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about gutters and why it's important to make sure that your gutters are clean going into the winter. I know right now it looks nice and sunny and warm, but real soon, as we all know, it's going to get cold and water's going to freeze. And so if you see this gutter right here is full of leaves and even has a little bit of dirt, if that's left long enough, you'll actually get vegetation growing out of your gutters. And that's a really bad thing for a couple reasons. Water can build up and actually sag your gutters if they're plugged, and it changes the slope of the gutter. So it no longer pushes the water down to the downspout and out. It actually gets into a little sag in the middle of the gutter, and it'll actually tear your gutter off, or your gutter will come off because of that. One last thing with gutters I'd like to explain to you is when they get plugged up, they actually cause the water to back up into the roof. And if you've heard of ice dams on your roof, oftentimes it starts with your gutter. And so water freezes in your gutter and ice above the gutter melts. And somewhere in the middle, there's water that is just sitting there that can't get out down the roof. So ultimately, keeping your gutters clean is a really important thing to do to your home. It's pretty simple. If you can just climb up on usually a 6 or 8 foot ladder is plenty big enough. Grab some handfuls and clean it out. And if you can't get up on a ladder, paying somebody to do this is worth it. Thanks for watching today's Home Maintenance Minute.
Welcome back, Sioux Falls, for Planning Preview for the month of September. Joining me now is Albert Schmidt with the Planning Office, and we get to talk about your most passionate favorite subject in the history of the world, correct?
You better believe it.
Floodplain.
Oh, one of the best subjects in the world.
And flood management.
Yeah, you can't ever get enough. You'll never get your full of floodplain.
So I wanted to have you on, because I hadn't had you on before, and really we don't get to talk a lot about flood management, floodplain, and what the city's doing. And you're part of the planning program, and it's really flood management is actually a big part of planning too. I mean, we're all together. We all work with, not only you with proactively with that, but you also have with the permits, and you have to sign off on a lot of the ones in the floodplain. So it's really great to have you on here and educate some of our viewers maybe a little bit about flood management.
Absolutely. So basically, with Floodplain Management Program, we're trying to be as proactive and protective as possible while still allowing people to do things with their property.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in South Dakota. We're not here to stifle people, but we are here to try to make sure that when we do something, we do it as appropriately as possible. So one of the things that we look for out there that people may or may not be aware of is when developments are happening out there, when they're moving dirt, we try to watch and see, all right, where are you moving dirt? How's that going to affect people around you? Because we don't want one project to push water problems off on other projects. So as long as it's regulatory floodplain for the city of Sioux Falls, we have that. And if you're ever curious about that, you can reach out to our office, or you can go online. We have what we call our FRIC layer, F-R-I-C layer. You can search on siouxfalls.org and find that on our open data site. So if you're interested in, am I in or not, that's an easy way. Otherwise, you can always give us a call.
Yeah, and I think it was a lot of, with what the city's proactively done, and this is, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when we actually built the levee and the dike system. I mean, the amount of properties that came out because of that system was amazing, right? I mean, there was so many areas, even by the mall and some of our big commercial areas, that were now in the floodplain, which prohibited or strictly required them to do a bunch more stuff, and some of the improvements they just couldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. When we, back in 2009, FEMA invalidated our levees, so we had to go in and raise them up. We did that proactively as quickly as we could, even beyond having federal funding to help pay for it, so we got that done. Then 2017, they got revalidated again. So yeah, it brought out like 1,900 properties that before that point had to be considered in the floodplain. So everything they were doing got analyzed by our team, and that really limited what you could do.
Yeah, and that's what was great about being proactive with that. And I know it was there was so much tax base that was in the floodplain that couldn't be improved and couldn't bring the tax base up higher just with that. So it was great they're being proactive. So talk to me a little bit about some wins maybe for 2023. And I know we were talking earlier today about a big thing that's going to be happening in October of this year, which will be great for homeowners, and we'll finally be on the same level as Watertown now, right? We're not going to be behind Watertown, right? Am I right?
It depends how you look at it, yeah. So what we're talking about here is the City of Sioux Falls joined the CRS program, the Community Rating System program through FEMA. We joined that in 2021, and we came in as what they call Class 8. So they rank classes 1 to 10, 1 being the best, 10 being you're basically not in. So we got in as an 8 based on just what we were already doing. Then we evaluated the program after we got in as an 8. We adopted our ordinance in 21 to bring in additional standards, because A, we were looking at them already, but B, also how do we help protect people and be more proactive and be out there in the public reaching out to people more. And so the CRS program helps to give you another reason to do more and to be more proactive. So with that ordinance update and with some of the plans we've put together, we just got approved to become a Class 7 CRS community, and that'll start October 1st. And what that means for the average citizen out there is that if you have flood insurance, regardless if you're required to have it or you just want to have it, you'll now get a higher discount on your insurance. You won't see it on a line item, but FEMA records it on their side. So right now, as a Class 8, they get a 10% discount. As a Class 7, they'll get a 15% discount. So if they're renewing their insurance after October 1st, they'll get a 15% discount at that point and going forward.
That's awesome. So that's kind of a big deal to go to that. And then do you guys start working on going to 6, or is that something, that you continually want to keep moving up and keep providing discount?
Gets tougher to get up to. Like 1 is really tough.
Yeah.
They'll be amazing, but that's really restrictive. So for us, our goal internally was to get to a Class 6 within the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And so typically in the CRS program, you don't advance the class too often. So we were kind of, I think we were a little an oddity, if you will, because we had to request out to them, which they do, but we had to request them before the normal 5-year visit period to say, hey, can you reevaluate what we do now to see if we can get a better ranking? And so we're going to try to do that again. We'll probably try to time that up with our full evaluation from them to try to get to a class 6 the next time they come in.
That's great. And then I was, another thing I saw you doing today actually was proactively sending out letters. We're still looking for that area that's by Tomar Park, the Rose Lot area that we know, what is it, 2019, 2020? 19, the big floods, and really affected a lot of those houses over there. So the city then participated in starting to buy out some of those houses and get those out of there so they don't continue to flood, which is a great program. But maybe talk a little bit about that program and the letters you sent out.
So since 19, through different funding sources we've had, we've acquired roughly 1/3 of the properties in that area which we identified we were going to be buying out potentially voluntarily over the years. And so we send out letters every year to them to say, hey, just checking in to see if you're interested in buying bought out. You know, no hammer coming your way, just saying, we're here, we're an option for you if you want to come out. We have limitations to what we can pay based on what the house gets evaluated at, but once that appraiser gets in there, we pay for that appraiser. That way they can tell you, here's what your house is worth, and then we can go, here's what we can pay you. So it's a pretty honest, straightforward approach, and if you don't like it, you're like, hey, look, that's too low. I can't do it. I can't move. We're not going to make you sell. You can walk away, and you're not going to hurt my feelings. But at least you know kind of where we're at, and then if something changes, we're here for you. You can reach back out to us. The biggest problem we have with it is it's not a quick solution. So if people are really needing to move, like, hey, look, I need this money in the next 60 days. I'm going to tell you, I can't help you, because it generally is going to take us up to 2 years to get your property bought out, depending on the funding source.
To do it. But at least, I mean, it gives you an idea if it's something you're willing to do. You know that there's an option if you're selling and maybe somebody doesn't want to buy it because it's in the floodplain, or why would we take that risk? There's an option for them to do it. And like you said, you guys pay appraised value, so it's not like you're, hey, here, we'll write you a check for pennies on the dollar. I mean, it's what the appraiser's saying your property's worth.
We're not doing houses for cash. We're not trying to buy low. We're trying to give you a fair amount so that you can take that equity you had and go reinvest in another house. We're not trying to just get everything from you. Now, one of the other things that kind of kicks into there too is the other programs we run where we look at, if you do live in the floodplain, what kind of reinvestment in your property can you do, and how do we work with you as a property owner to make sure that you know those limits so that you don't overextend yourself and all of a sudden get yourself in a bad situation. So for the city of Sioux Falls, starting this year, January 1st of this year, we start tracking property over a 3-year period for improvements. So if let's say you have 3 bathrooms in your house and you're going to remodel each one once a year, well, each one's going to add up. So let's just assume for a quick second that a bathroom, so let's say it's just 5% of your house value. So to remodel that bathroom, it's cost you 5% of your house value. We take the percents and we say you can't have more than 45% over a 3-year period. After 45%, then the whole house is going to be brought up into our standard, which a lot of times means you're going to lose your basement or you're going to have to raise the house up. So we try to warn people because we don't want to get that surprise into people. We don't want to enforce that on people at a moment's notice. That's not fun for anybody. So we try, when they come in, we warn them and go, all right, you want this permit? We can do that. This is going to be, in this instance, 5% of that. So you're going to have 40% left. And then warn them again. Now, if you know what you're going to do over the next 3 years, you can time things out and it can be fine. But sometimes unexpected events happen. If your house gets a flood, if your house has a car run through it, if a plane crashes into your house, these are all things that are going to come in, or a hailstorm comes through and you need to re-roof. These are all things that are going to count against you. So you don't know what's going to happen. So we always tell people, like, leave some wiggle room in there. Don't get down to 0% left to wiggle, and all of a sudden now something happened, and now we got to make you replace your whole house.
What's the 45% number? Is that from what the county has it valued at, or what do you get an appraisal, or does somebody get that?
Good question. So we have multiple ways to go to keep it simple, quick, and as little expense to the homeowner as possible. And also any property owner, commercial's the same way. We start with the assessed value
from the county.
So we look at the value from the county and say, all right, they say it's worth $320,000, 45% of that. If there's no value there, for whatever reason, or if the value is just something that the homeowner, property owner does not agree with, we allow for them to get an appraiser to tell us what that's worth, and then they can do that. But again, the downside with that is it costs money and it takes way more time. So typically when people are coming into us, they have an idea of a project, they want their permit today, and while we may not be able to issue a permit today, we can usually quicker, but to get an appraiser involved, that's going to add weeks.
Yeah, to the thing, and hopefully you don't run into that a lot where it's like, oh, we're so close that we need to get an appraiser to give us that extra, 10% or whatever.
Usually, when the appraiser gets involved, it's because there's a very large project that they're planning.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's not because there's a bunch of small ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, that big one. Then we go, all right, look, you're over based on what you're telling us you're going to do. So if you want this, here's the route forward. We're not trying to tell people how to get around the ordinance. We're just trying to walk them through the ordinance.
Great. So real quick, before we let you go, but how do people find more information? Where is it at on the website? And then who can they contact to kind of get that kind of
So if you have questions on floodplain, you want to know if you're in, you want to know the restrictions, the limitations that we have out there, or if you're interested in buying a property and you're like, is this even in? Sioux Falls website is probably the best first place for people to go. So siouxfalls.org/floodplain, and then their webpage there has information. You can go to FEMA page to search. Also has our contact information. But if you're really interested in it right now and you have a phone ready to go, you can call me at 605-367-8603. That's my direct line. So if you have any questions on floodplain, you can reach out to me that way. If it's 2 a.m. and you're just really excited about knowing this information, you can also email us too. And we have an email that's set up just for this. It's floodplain@siouxfalls.org. And you can email that. That goes to our floodplain team, including myself, so that one of us can pick that up and reach back out to you and answer that. And a lot of times that email gets used by realtors and people interested in buying properties. It's a really good tool. Cool. If you think you're going to buy a property and you're like, am I in the floodplain? You're never going to offend us by reaching out and asking, hey, is this in the floodplain? Even if you're so far away, it's ludicrous. We're here to help you.
Yeah, great. And I think people need to realize you love talking to them about floodplain on the phone. So you actually want them to call you.
Yeah, give me a call. And the other thing we do with CRS that you might see if you're a resident of Sioux Falls already is in your utility bill once a year, usually February, we'll send out a notice that says, here's the services the City of Sioux Falls offers.
Great.
And so if you get your bill digitally, it's attached as an attachment on your online side of it. If you get it physically, then there's a little pamphlet in there.
Great.
So look for that in February.
Well, thanks for joining us, Albert.
Thanks for
talking a little bit of floodplain and flood management. We might have to have you on every year.
It's always a highlight of my day when I can come talk to you.
And thanks for joining us, Sioux Falls. As always, the Planning Commission meeting will be on the first Wednesday of the month, which this month it is September 6th. It's at 6 o'clock over at the Carnegie Town Hall. At that meeting, we'll talk about everything we talked about in the first half of this. You can provide public input. You're always welcome to come. And then at the end of the agenda, we actually have a 5-minute comment period to talk about anything that wasn't on the agenda. So please come, please talk about these items, and thanks, Sioux Falls, and have a great day.